What is up? What is up? What is up? I hope everyone had a fantastic day, got out and did some shit outside. And if you don't know who I am Ryan Turbo Jackson, your host, and across the desk from me is my co-host, Mr. Kyle 2K's Kaler. We are the Turbo and 2K show where we give you our amateur advice on everything sports. And with that being said, 2K's, it's good to have you back in the studio, my friend.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
And another big thing is we've reached 70 subs on on the YouTube side, and we've been averaging about 100 downloads every Tuesday morning for the podcast. Mm-hmm. So I want to give a big shout out and thank you for everyone that has been following us and keeping track of us. So for everyone that's in the chat, go ahead and drop a comment and let me know who you are, where you're from, and let's have a conversation. Always good to see where people are from, and luckily. The people that have been conversating with us know that once you drop a comment on the YouTube side, your name goes up on the fucking screen. So we are fancy pants in this motherfucker, so let's get started. 2Ks. I know we kind of talked about this last week, but I think it's becoming more and more relevant as we go along here, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but yeah, this whole COVID shit sucks. Mm-hmm. And you know, I know we're talking about it from a sports perspective, but obviously around the world and everything else, mm-hmm. It's everything is a whole lot bigger as far as that's concerned. But yeah, this is no fun, especially if you're a fan of the Wisconsin Badgers, and they've now had 2 games canceled. Mm-hmm. Now. Like we talked about last week, the Big 10 doesn't have any buys built in. There's no cushion. And they're looking to have, I think they have 7 scheduled games, right? Mm-hmm. And you have to have 5 in order to qualify for the Big 10 title game. And especially when it comes to Wisconsin, they're one of the top teams in that west side of the division there. And before all this stuff happened, they were a top 10 team.
Yeah. That's what makes it so unfortunate is you're talking about a top 10 team, a team that, you know, potentially, especially with the way that, I mean, I think the only question mark with them going into the season was, you know, quarterback position. Mm-hmm. And I think it was Graham Mertz is the kid, the freshman. I mean, just put on a show in his first ever college start. And then to find out a couple days later that he tested positive for COVID, that's just what makes it so unfortunate is, I mean, top 10 team, quarterback that gets off to a start like that. I mean, you're talking about a team that potentially could have been in the Final Four. I mean, especially with the way we've seen, you know, kind of the rest of the season unfold so far. I mean, teams that we thought automatically going to be in that Final Four, or in that playoff, or right there in that, are not even in the picture anymore.
Right, and then even to kind of further that, I mean, it's sad. I mean, even the head coach tested positive as well. And so now what this means is Wisconsin has to have no more setbacks. Mm. No more setbacks in order to do anything as far as the postseason is concerned.
And with the Big 10 rules, it's 21 days.
Mm-hmm, for quarantine. Yeah.
So you're talking about the starting quarterback of Wisconsin is out for 21 days. The backup quarterback for them broke his leg, so he's out for the year. The third string quarterback tested positive for COVID also. Right. So when Wisconsin, if and when they do get back to playing, we still haven't hit the 21-day mark. So next week, if they are able to play, they're supposed to be playing against Michigan. They could be on their fourth string quarterback going into that game. Michigan's defense might actually be able to stop them.
I was just gonna say, going into that game, we'll get into Michigan and Michigan State here just in a little bit, but yeah, even extending on that, you know, I have a feeling this would all have been different if it was Baylor or any of the not top 10 teams. But especially when it comes to the 21-day quarantine, what if it was Ohio State and Justin Fields? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I have a feeling that there'd be a lot more quick moves to
Yeah.
change this. If it was some, and this we're not taking anything away from Wisconsin right now. You and I were big proponents of, we thought they were going to be a very, very good team. So it's not like we're hating on them. It's just that they're not at when it
They're
comes
not
to
Ohio State.
Yeah.
I mean, Ohio State is a team that basically is either going to be in the 4-team playoff every single year, or they're going to be right there. So, I mean, you're talking about one of the best college football programs in the nation, year in, year out. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that if they were in this situation, the Big Ten would probably be coming, trying to come to conclusion with a little bit of a different game plan. To me, 21 days is a, that's a pretty big punishment compared to what a lot of other sports. I mean, you look at the NFL and what is it, 5 days from the time that you find that you do test negative for it. I think you have to sit another 5 days until you can be back in there.
Look at Matt Stafford.
Yeah.
Or it came out Monday that he had come in contact with it again, and then he still played this week.
Yeah. And when you're talking about collegiate athletes, it's obviously going to be different. They're not professionals; they're still amateur athletes at the time, so they're going to treat it a little bit differently. To me, one of the things that's just so dumb is the Trevor Lawrence situation. He has COVID, so he cannot play, and he's got to go through whatever bullshit testing they're going to run these kids through. I don't know. But he's okay to be on the sideline.
Yeah, the cardiology tests or whatever. Yeah.
Yes. So why is it that the athletes in other sports it needs to be the same across the board?
You would think so.
Across the board, every single sport, across the board. Why is it different from whatever sport we're playing, whatever age group we're in? I have no idea why it has to be different. Just leave it the same across the board. Everybody get on the same page. And for us as fans, it would be a hell of a lot easier just to be able to follow and know what actually is the rule and why so-and-so is not playing. Or it's so irritating to me.
Yeah, it would seem like, it's not like the difference between an NFL player and a high school player. There's obviously some big changes that is going to be happening to the athlete's body from the time they're a senior in high school until they're a fourth or fifth year guy in the NFL. Mm-hmm. Now, when you get in between the college player and the NFL player, sure, there's going to be some changes as well where he's going to put on some weight and kind of fill out, but for the most part, he's the same dude. Mm-hmm. But you are 100% right that it should be more uniform. I think was the word you were kind of looking for, mm-hmm. and and fans, so that we know what's going on. But not only that, the athletes themselves, mm-hmm. because I have a feeling that not all these athletes know exactly what they're supposed to do when this happens. I'm sure they have someone on staff telling them their protocol and everything like that. But if I was a player like that, I'd want to know the ins and outs mm-hmm. and what I have to do. Mm-hmm. And what we're seeing now is the difference between obviously the leagues, because the Big Ten has their own rules and they put those rules in place while other schools were already playing. Mm-hmm. And as a Notre Dame fan, seeing 15,000 people at Notre Dame Stadium last night, South Bend is...
And then 15,000 of them
exactly
huddled up in the...
rushing the field.
At the 50-yard line.
Yes.
And look, I'm not hating it. It was a huge situation. Obviously a big deal for Notre Dame football program mm-hmm. as a whole to knock out, the number one team in the nation.
Right.
So it's a big deal, but obviously, there's going to be those haters.
Of course.
Especially when you have a program like Notre Dame.
Yep, it's very polarizing.
Yes, there's going to be those haters that have nothing better to do other than to comment on just... don't even get me started. It's just a conversation. And I'm not a Notre Dame fan at all, right. But I'm not going to bash them for what happened. And for one, those kids and the Notre Dame program, they have no control over all that happening.
No, and to be honest with you, if you've ever been, if you've ever been a college student or have been to a game like that, and especially if that's the school you're going to, fuck yeah, I would have done the same thing.
Absolutely.
If I was a Notre Dame student, I would have done the same exact thing. You wouldn't be able to keep my ass off of that field.
You see it every year,
Yeah.
multiple times when it comes to college basketball. I mean, anytime somebody goes in and beats Duke on their home floor,
Which doesn't happen that often, but yeah.
I mean, you see it. So yeah, it's that's what makes college sports great.
Yes.
Like, let's not get away from that just because of COVID-19. We got to stop allowing this to rule our entire lives and run everything. That's where I'm getting at with it.
And what's even more ironic is that during Coach Kelly's press conference, he even told the team they had a little plan to get the players off the field as soon as possible. And in the words that he put it, when we win this game. So you're right. When it comes to the college students and everything like that, that it is what it is. It is what it is. And for all of this to happen, whether we're talking Wisconsin, in the Pac-12 games we were talking about, it was Arizona against Utah and Washington and Cal, and all of these. Every campus in the entire country, you're gonna have college kids do dumb shit. How do I know that? Because I was one and I did dumb shit. And if this would have been going around when I was in college, I probably would still be going to parties. I would still be going to bars. Why? Because I'm in my early 20s and fucking bulletproof. That's exactly. But then again, you're going to get the other side that's the the extremely cautious ones. But that just wasn't my style, especially my college years. Now that I've grown up a little bit, it's kind of different. But yeah, getting back to the football part, I mean and the Pac-12's the same way. They didn't build in any bye weeks, any cushions. The only thing that separates my Pac-12 concerns from my Big 10 concerns is there's not a chance in hell a Pac-12 team is going to get into the playoffs. The top two teams, Stanford and Oregon, there's still no way those teams could run the table and still not make it into the playoff. You would get a one-loss SEC team in there before you got an undefeated Pac-12 team. Just because the team itself is the teams in the Pac-12 aren't that great.
No, they're not.
And we've gotten away from kind of the powerhouse Oregons. Especially since Herbert's left. USC is on the rise. I'll give you that.
But they're not what they were.
No, not at this moment. And we're talking only about right now because that's obviously what we have to go by. But. Yeah, to me, it's not even a question. Not even a question. And yes, I see some folks out there watching. So if you have any comments, let us know. If you think we're full of shit, let us know. If you agree, let us know. But yeah, we're talking COVID concerns with the Big 10 and the Pac-12 right now. What does it mean going forward? Are some of these teams going to have to be judged differently because they aren't going to get enough games? Let us know in the comments, guys. Let us know. But yeah, getting back to the Big Ten, I think it's more of a concern because obviously, we've already touched on it. Wisconsin is a top 10 team, and I think that they, if healthy, and if they do finish out the year, because the games that have been canceled are not losses; they're just no contest. So it's not like because they played one game, so. They're technically 1-0.
And it affects the other team, though.
For sure.
Because
for sure.
There's a chance that this could happen for Ohio State.
Yeah.
Or, just kind of naming another team off, Indiana. I mean, Indiana's a team that, where we're at right now, looking like, they're one of the better teams. They're legitimately a top 10 team. And probably after, not that I'm saying that Michigan's a good football team, but they just had their way with them. And they were already, I think, they were right there in the top 15, I want to say, going 12, into that game.
12 or 18.
Yeah, so with that win, they're probably going to move up into that top 10. So what's going to happen when those games just get basically canceled because they're not going to have any time to make them up?
No,
unless they start trying to make them up, at the end of the year in the middle of the week or something. But then you're going to be messing.
Throwing the schedule off for everything
the way
else.
that this looks already is by the time that by the time you have the conference championship week, the very next week you're going to be right into bowl season. So when are you going to have the time to make these games up?
They aren't.
And
they aren't.
I mean, it's just
that's one of the things that the people were talking about when the Big Ten commissioner came out with these rules is that what happens if something happens like this? And he pretty much said that we waited too long and we're shit out of luck. And unfortunately, I think he's correct. Had they started when everybody else did, then you could, because even then we saw at the beginning of the NFL season how they were shifting games around, having 2 Monday night games or a game on Tuesday. They were making it happen, whereas, and for the Big Ten commissioner and everyone on that committee, I think it's very either ignorant or pompous to think that that's not going to happen. And it seems to me like it's almost as if they were setting the season up to fail. They're going to have a season just to throw it against the wall and see what happens. And the Pac-12 as well, because you look at this weekend was the weekend the Pac-12 opened, and this was the third week of Big Ten play, so they're even later, So, how much legitimacy did you actually put into this? How much did you think that was it arrogance to think that your conference wasn't going to be affected by this, or, like I said, did you just not give a shit? That's the part that gets me.
I really think that conferences like the Big Ten, like the Pac-12, that they reacted too soon. I don't know what the big rush was to just make a split-second reaction and because at first it was, we're canceling the season, we're not playing this year, we're canceling. And it wasn't until they started to see some of these other conferences like the SEC, like the ACC,
or even Notre Dame.
Yeah, basically just say we're not going to stop. We're going to go through like this is a normal season. Obviously, we're not going to have the fans in the stands and stuff like that. But we're going to plan on playing a full season. And to this point, yeah, I mean they've some of these teams have obviously Notre Dame's had some numbers of COVID cases. Obviously, you look at a team like Clemson. They have their best player, arguably the best player in college football, is out because of COVID. That's going to happen. It's kind of the inevitable. Sooner or later, pretty much everybody's going to get it sooner or later. So
especially when you're in that, pretty much the only way not to do it is do it the way that the NBA did and put everybody
in a bubble, which is completely impossible when you start talking about football,
especially college football. Yeah.
Really, about the only sport that it is possible to do it in, major sport, is basketball. And possibly hockey. Yeah. So the two sports that that did that, but it's just there was so many reactions, just kind of decisions that were just I don't think they really were thought through. I think that people were the Big Ten especially were just like, oh, this is what we need to do, instead of just sitting back and thinking about it like the other conferences did. And that's where I think the Big Ten failed. The Big Ten failed as an entire conference, and the Pac-12 followed right along, and they failed also. And now they're trying to bring this back. Well, it's not going to work. No. It's not going to work because you're going to see teams, and when it happens to Ohio State, and they end up having to miss a week, that's when it's really going to blow up in their face. Or when Oregon runs the table, USC runs the table, and they don't get in. There's going to be a lot of pissed off fans out there. And you know who you have to blame? Your own fucking conference.
Yep. Yeah, there was so many people that were just up at arms at the Big Ten commissioner saying he should lose his job. Once he canceled the season, and then when he wanted to bring it back, so kind of in a hurry, but not in a hurry. It seems like he's like, all right, I fucked up. We need to get this going. We need to get it going now. Let's just throw some rules together and see what happens. And, they've obviously they were obviously one of the most kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Precautionary, I guess you could say, obviously with the 21-day quarantine as opposed to a 14, or even how some of the other like the Matt Stafford thing today. This was Matt Stafford's second time. If you remember, in the preseason he got it, or leading up to the season he got it. So this is his second time. It's like, Matt, what the fuck are you getting into over there in Old Detroit? Because you're obviously going someplace where you shouldn't, or someone in your family is going someplace where they shouldn't. But
which for a lot of people, I mean, home.
Yeah.
I mean, they have kids that are going to school
yeah,
and,
exactly.
and things like that, and this gets right back to what I mean. I don't want to try to start speaking like I'm a health professional, but I think it's pretty much, this is pretty much common sense. It's kind of the inevitable. We're all going to get it sooner or later. There's nothing we really can do. We can just keep on pushing it back,
Yep.
like we've been doing for the last year now almost. Or just kind of start getting back to the normal, like and because it's out there everywhere. We can keep on trying to say we're gonna push this and we're gonna avoid this, but come the fuck on, like it's so
it's unfortunate because I mean you never want to see anybody get sick. I don't care who you are. And if you are wishing that on someone, you need to change your fucking life principles, because you're living a life you shouldn't. It takes way less time to be nice and kind than it is to be hateful and stuff like that. So, but that's a whole other subject. But we were able to see baseball, and then kind of rounding out this COVID conversation. Justin Turner, got no further punishment. And that's something we really didn't even touch on when we were doing our World Series wrap up. Was dude got pulled in like the 6th inning or something because he tested positive. You would think they'd get that test back a little sooner, don't you think?
Yeah.
And it's kind of ironic how that happens. And then he comes out, they take him out, and then he comes out of the dugout to celebrate. And yet again, if I was Justin Turner and they took me out, I'd be doing the same thing. However, I wouldn't be kissing all the, my wife and hugging everybody. I would have been a little bit more, have a little bit more precaution there. But to each their own. I'm not the one in there. But if my team won the World Series, you better bet your ass I'm going to be out there celebrating with them on the field. There'd be no amount of staff trying to keep me in the fucking clubhouse. Get out of here with that. But yeah, he didn't receive any other discipline. He said that he would discipline himself enough, which I'm not sure what he actually did. He apologized. Yeah. But that was kind of it. And he kind of brought up a valid point, is that he'd been around his teammates all day. So it's not like you can give it to them twice if you do happen to give it to them. But I haven't heard any other positives come back from that. So it is what it is. It is what it is. But for the most part, baseball, I think baseball handled it well. There were some teams like the Marlins and the Cardinals that were hit a little bit harder than than some other teams. But I think overall they handled it well. I think they managed to put in enough time to make up the games, if need be, to play them instead of just putting them as no contest. Obviously, we had the NBA. I don't think there was a single positive that came out of that.
They had the way that they handled everything. They basically knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
By setting up this bubble and by keeping all the players there, and in order to do that, the NBA came up with the game plan, but the players have to buy into it, and the players bought into it, with the exception of Lou Williams when he left, but there for a little bit. But the players bought into it, and I'm sure that at times they didn't enjoy it. Obviously, being in a bubble like that, a few of the podcasts that I listened to, being able to listen to some of the players that were there and some of their stories, it wasn't all enjoyable, especially if your team wasn't one of the favorites to get there or to win it or to be a favorite in the playoffs, but. Hey, they made it work, and kudos to them for pulling it off. So
yeah, and I can imagine if you have a family with small kids and you're away from them for 3 fucking months, that can't be the easiest thing in the world to do either. But it just seems like there was so many other things in place that saw success. I'm bringing it back to the whole Big 10 and Wisconsin and the Pac-12 theme here is that the Big Ten and the Pac-12 had. It's not like they didn't have anything to work with. There was enough ways, safety protocols, everything that had already been laid in place prior to you starting, that you should have had the wherewithal and the plan enough to kind of piggyback off them rather than trying to reinvent the wheel. I guess is what I'm saying. That there were things that were out there that people have tried, that other leagues have tried, worked well, but not super, not ultra successful. And then, like we said, with the bubble, with the NBA, which obviously with college football, would not work. Would not work just for the sheer amount. I mean, basketball, you have 12 guys on your roster. Whereas with a college football team, I think you can dress like 65 or something like that. So it'd have to be a gigantic fucking bubble. But it's not like they had zero things to go off of, is what I'm saying. And it shocked me to still that I thought by now, because like I said, you and I kind of touched on this last week, but I think I would have bet any amount of money that by the time you and I are sitting down and recording this on Sunday, that the Big Ten would have already altered the 21 rule, 21 day rule, and I haven't heard that they did.
No.
So, are you really trying to be that much over the top?
Yeah. I don't know what it is. Like I don't know either. And this is what really bothers me about it is. All these teams and all these conferences they're all playing for the same thing. They're all playing to get to that Final Four.
And they're all playing the same game.
Yes, and they're all trying to when it's all said and done and the Final Four is made up. Everybody's playing to be that last team standing. Everybody wants to win the championship. That's what it's all about.
And like Dr. Pepper Trophy, or whatever the fuck it is.
When everybody's not playing by the same rules or by the same guidelines,
that's when it's unfair.
Yes, exactly. It's unfair. God forbid this happens to Ohio State. Ohio State, to me, as from what I've watched so far, they're the best team in college football. They are the best team in college football.
Yes. Yep.
And if something like that is to happen to them, and I'm a Michigan fan. I hate Ohio State.
Yeah.
But I would feel terrible for them to get screwed over and possibly not even be in that. Or to just have their season canceled, or to go into it and maybe they do get into it and they are able to play, but a guy like Justin Fields is on a 21-day, he's got to sit out for 21 days because of the stupid ass rules that the Big Ten are coming up with. Like, come on, get everybody. Everybody needs to be on the same page?
Well, here's the scenario for you. Let's say that Ohio State is one of the Final Four. And right before the last game, Fields tests positive. And now going into that game, this is after the Big Ten title game. They're gearing up for the first round of the playoffs. Does Justin Fields still have to abide by this 21 day quarantine, or let's just say for shits and giggles, they're playing Alabama. They're scheduled to play Alabama. Two very different COVID guidelines. Which ones do they go by? Do they go by the Big Ten? And if they do have to go by the Big Ten rules, Justin Fields can't play in that game. But if they go with the SEC rules, he can play if he has has so many negative tests.
Come up with the false positive tests, like the Nick Saban idea where you test positive, then all of a sudden a couple hours later you test negative. And
ironic how that happens.
Yes, so and that's where I'm getting to is we have teams that are playing off of different rules, but everybody's playing for the same thing. Everybody's playing for the same trophy.
Yep.
So it's just like I don't know. I have a hard time. I mean. Yeah, you are still playing for your conference championship, and obviously that's a goal that every single team puts on, as one of their main goals going into the season. Sure. But everybody wants the actual national. Everybody wants the natty.
Oh, yeah.
That's what they're playing for. Obviously, yeah, we want to win our conference championship, but we want that. We want that national championship trophy. We want to be the number one team in all of college football.
Sure.
And
We want
when
that ring.
everybody's not playing on the same rules or on the same guidelines, how legitimate is it? That's my question.
Well, 2Ks, I wish I had an answer for you, my friend, because I want one as well. But let's see what we got going here. All right, we do have. Looks like we have 3 people watching. So don't just be a watcher. Be a talker. If you guys do not know who I am Ryan Turbo Jackson, your host of the Turbo and 2K show. And across the desk from me is Mr. Kyle 2K's Kaler. And ladies and gentlemen, forgot one of the biggest things to pop off here to start out the show. We are the proud owner of theturboand2kshow.com. Did that today. So the website's going to be up and running here shortly. Keep your fingers crossed so I can figure this shit out. And have a pretty good feeling. A pretty good feeling on this. So keep an eye out on that. And if you are getting any entertainment out of this, any entertainment at all, hit that like button, hit that subscribe. Like we said out the gate, thank you for all of you that subscribe and listen to us on the audio on the audio side as well. The audio side is giving us about 100 downloads a week every single Tuesday. So keep it rolling, ladies and gentlemen. We absolutely love you.
I want to throw a shout out to Marcellus High School football team.
Yes.
Won in the second round of playoffs. I think that is the first time that Marcellus has ever done that. As far as football goes. And then I think I heard today that they are playing against Martin next Friday.
That too. Friday at 8:00, I think. So best of luck, because we won't be able to give you a shout out until afterwards when we talk about your next round victory, Wildcats.
Absolutely.
But yeah, and it's a huge accomplishment considering this is the first year that And I'm pretty sure any of the coaches have had any 8-man experience. For those of you that don't know, Marcellus did go to 8-man football this year, and they have been obviously tearing it up because this is the first time in Marcellus history, ladies and gentlemen, that they've made it this far in the playoffs. So congratulations, all the coaches, the kids. Keep it up. Here at the 2K Turbo and 2K show, we love you, and hopefully we'll be able to track down one of those coaches once this is done. But you know what? I'd rather that be later than sooner, and you guys keep kicking ass. So, but let's get into our next order of business. And if you guys have been following us for any amount of time, we like to do the way too early predictions. And this week we're going to be talking about obviously the Heisman race. This is always a highly contested, highly debated subject matter. I mean, you can actually go on any of the gambling sites and look up your odds and throw your money down on who you think is going to win this. And to be honest with you, 2Ks, looking at this list...
Well, our 2 favorites.
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence, obviously, been out for the last 2 weeks.
Yep.
And then you go to Justin Fields, obviously, only 3 weeks into the season so far.
And the one that really no one's really talking about is Steady Eddie Mac Jones from Alabama. And I'm going to throw Travis Etienne in there. However, I think with his lackluster game against Notre Dame, I'm not so sure if you want to include him in there. But for the sake of this argument, we will. And lastly, Zack Wilson from BYU, kind of the wild card. I mean, not kind of, obviously the wild card out of all 5 of these. But Travis Etienne, I'm pretty, even though as fantastic of a player that he is, I want to say he only had like 36 yards rushing last night. Did catch some balls out of the backfield, but I mean let's be honest. In this day and age, for a running back to win this award, you basically almost have to put up like 200 yards a week or something ridiculous like that, because this is obvious. It's become, well, it hasn't become. For the most part, it is a quarterback award, unless we've obviously seen some Heisman winners from the running back position, but most likely a quarterback. But let's start off with, obviously the Trevor Lawrence odds-on favorite coming into this year. Missed the last 2 weeks, obviously. And in your opinion, how much does that hurt him in his Heisman race?
I think it hurts him a lot, especially with Mac Jones, who I have as the leader right now. He hasn't missed any games, and he's played more games than Justin Fields. Even though I think it's a matter of time, and I think Justin Fields is gonna pass him, just because I think Fields' numbers are just gonna be insane, especially with that offense and with the weapons that he has.
Especially if he keeps playing Baylor or Rutgers every week.
Yeah. So I mean, to me, Fields his numbers are just going to be those crazy numbers that when it's all said and done, he's my favorite to win it. I believe when the season is over, as long as nothing weird happens, long as nothing weird happens, and Ohio State's able to play their full schedule, I think he goes on to get it. But as far as for Trevor Lawrence being out the last 2 weeks, yes, I think it kills him. And that's kind of how it's going to go for everybody that gets up. Once you get to that point where you're, the favorite or you're in second, you can't afford to miss any time, because once you do, you can't make up for that, and it doesn't sound like they're going to be able to make up the games to get it. So unfortunately, it's just kind of the way it goes.
Yeah, and I think out of the five, I think Trevor Lawrence has the most NFL capable game out of all of them. Mac Jones just seems to me like, he's been like I said, he's been the steady Eddie.
Steady. Yep.
He's just probably off the cuff, probably averaging like 315 to 320 and 3 touchdowns a game. And take into consideration too, he lost his top target a couple weeks ago for the year with an ankle. So, but the one thing that Saban's been just sick on is his receiving cores. Whereas lately rewind 5 or 6 years ago, it was the running backs that it seems like Saban was pumping out, like the Ingrams, the Henrys. Seems like even Yeldon there Yeldon was a legit back for Saban. His didn't really translate to the NFL quite as well as the other guys did, but his college game was there for sure. And now it's more. I mean, look at the draft last year. I think three of his receivers went in the first 2 rounds. So obviously that's become a huge part of Saban's game, because he's been recruiting like no other when it's come to the wide receiver field. But yeah, I've got to give the tip of the cap to Mac Jones right now. I agree with you that Justin Fields might overtake him, but I'm still not 8-balling Trevor Lawrence right now. He has the ability and the team to just tear up the rest of the schedule, and it's looking to where we saw one hell of a game last night with Notre Dame and in Clemson, and it's looking like they're going to be rematching in the ACC title game. So hopefully Lawrence is able to play in that game, because when I say Notre Dame has beaten him once, and that was one hell of a game, and I want to see it now with Lawrence under center.
Well, there's gonna be so many Notre Dame haters, because there always is, and that's what everybody's gonna say is
you beat him,
but Trevor Lawrence wasn't there. So I get it. Yeah, you want to beat them. Everybody wants to beat a team that's at their best. You don't want to beat them when their best player is not on the field. And Trevor Lawrence, we're talking about him possibly being the best player in college football. He's definitely the best player on that Clemson football team. So he's not on the field. Obviously, yeah, it's gonna. I mean, anybody that is any bit of a sports fan is gonna say, I want to see this game, when both teams are at their best. It doesn't take anything away from Notre Dame. Notre Dame's a good football team. They proved that last night. It's Clemson that we're talking about. You don't think that they don't have 2-3 quarterbacks that could be starting on about 85, 90% of college football teams
Yes.
around the nation.
Yes.
And the kid that played last night, he could be starting on probably over 90% of.
Let's just call
college
him
football
DJ
teams.
because I have no idea how to pronounce. Even though I heard it a million times last night.
Yeah,
I got
I'm not even gonna try it.
Yeah, because I'm just gonna fucking thrash it. So I will do him a service and just call him DJ. But yeah, it was. We've got a group chat, and one of my buddies is like, "Well, of course, Dabo's got a fucking stud as a freshman is Lawrence's backup," and it's like, yeah, well, and just to kind of touch on Justin Fields a little bit, I was watching the pregame leading up to Florida Georgia, and if Fields doesn't transfer, we're talking about Georgia possibly being the number one team in the nation.
Mm-hmm.
They already have the best. They have the best defense, even though Florida fucking thrashed them. And Florida's looking legit as fuck, by the way. But no, they kind of brought it up, and I never really thought about it. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, if you think he transferred from Georgia to Ohio State.
Yeah.
And look where Ohio State would be if Joe Burrow would have never transferred.
Mm-hmm.
So you can play this game, especially with the transfer portal now. You can play this game all day. But yeah, I mean that's Georgia's one main chink in their armor is their quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Fields never transfers. You don't have that problem.
And even going back to last year, I mean, yeah, we talked quite a bit about Fromm there.
Mm-hmm.
There's no question
He was very underwhelming.
Yeah, Justin Fields was the better quarterback. I mean, if Justin Fields was on that team last year, we're talking about a whole different Georgia team.
Mm-hmm.
Because I really think I know at the beginning of the season a lot of people were high on Fromm. I really think he was kind of one that he held them back. He held that team back a little
Very
bit.
underwhelming.
Yeah.
I mean
Look at all the NFL talent that came off of that team. Obviously you look at what LSU sent to and what Alabama sends year in year out, but there's a lot of really good football players that came from Georgia that are in the NFL now.
Absolutely. And the dark horse here is Zack Wilson. And going into this year, I've never even fucking heard of Zack Wilson. And do you happen to have any of his stats over there, 2Ks?
I can get them.
Okay, I will kind of chat over here. And for those of you that are watching on YouTube, let me know if you guys like the new layout, the new cards, and the new pictures and everything. Kind of learning how to use this live streaming software, so I'm really starting to like it. So this is kind of the start of a new thing. So let me know if you like it. But even though because BYU went into Boise on Friday and just fucking laid a beating on them, like 51-7 or some shit like that.
51-17.
And Zack Wilson was a fucking beast the whole game. I mean, there was no chance that Boise State didn't even have a fucking chance in that game. So for them to go in, and I know Boise State isn't like the Boise State of old, like the Statue of Liberty play, and your boy that's now the offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, back when he was, the winningest quarterback in D1 history or some shit like that. But when it comes to BYU, I think, and this is coming from a Notre Dame fan, which has historically been an independent, as well as BYU. Was BYU able to join a conference? I don't think they were. Whereas Notre Dame obviously was able to join the ACC because of their affiliation with all the other sports and stuff. But for them to even have a season, I guess, is kind of a success. But I think that, they're ranked in the top 10. How legitimate their schedule is going to be, I'm not sure, because you would think I would do this research beforehand, but his numbers, 2Ks, did you bring him up?
Yep.
What are we looking at?
He's got 21 touchdown passes, which is tied for fourth in the nation. He's only thrown 2 interceptions, over 2,500 yards, which is second in the nation in that. So Yeah, I mean the numbers are there. What's gonna hurt him is obviously
The level of competition.
You look at the big names like Justin Fields, like Trevor Lawrence, even with Mac there in Alabama. It's the teams that they play for. Those are going to be the teams that are going to be competing for the playoff positions. Not that BYU can't get there, but it's going to be a very, very tough uphill battle for them to be able to slide in there.
They're going to need a lot of things happen
yes.
before they get in.
Yes, and unfortunately that's what's going to hurt a kid like Zack Wilson, who has the numbers and at the end of the season might have the best numbers of all these kids, but when you look at the competition, what he's playing against and what some of the other guys are playing against, are up against week in, week out. It's an uphill battle for him. He's one of them you root for him, because it would be cool to see it, especially a school like BYU to pull a Heisman winner. I'm not saying that it can't happen. I mean, this is 2020. A lot of weird shit has happened. Definitely,
that's a very valid point in any argument these days. But do I think he's legit enough to be, if they do get the invites to?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
He deserves to stand shoulder to shoulder with the other three guys.
And that's a great thing for BYU, for the program.
Sure.
For they're trying to build a program. They're trying to be consistent and be a consistent top 25 team year in, year out. That's huge to have somebody there on Heisman Day. So yeah, I don't see it happening where he wins it, but absolutely, I think there's a very good chance that he's sitting there, as one of the 3 or 4 or whatever, however many finalists there's going to be.
Yeah, I think he's definitely played his way into the conversation to be a legit contender for this award. Will he get it? Probably not, just because like we talked about, the strength of schedule, as well as just kind of the notoriety. Have you watched a BYU game all year? I've watched one. And that was I watched the second half of the. Well, the game was on. It really wasn't much of a game, like I said, the BYU Boise State game, and yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a shame, but on the other hand, too, a player like that does draw a lot of eyes to BYU, and I don't think BYU's had this much hype around a quarterback since Steve Young, something like that. Yeah. So. Who knows? And there's still a lot of football left to be played, 2Ks. And like I said, I started out this segment with, this is obviously our way too early picks. So if you're voting, if the Heisman committee came up to you and said, all right, Turbo and 2Ks, you each get a vote for Heisman because our media stats are that legit, who is getting your vote, 2Ks? As it is right now, whatever the fuck day it is in November 8th, 8 o'clock, almost 9 o'clock, 2020. Who gets your vote?
I mean, where we're at right now, Mac Jones. I mean, just because he hasn't missed any games, he's played it, and he just hasn't done anything to necessarily lose it. He had, when you talk about Trevor Lawrence missing the last 2 games, missing the Notre Dame game. Which the biggest game of the season so far.
That could have been a gigantic stamp on his resume.
Yes, and
having been healthy for that game.
That's
active, I should say.
Where we're at this point in the season, all around college football, that's the biggest game that has been played, and he missed it. He missed
1v4.
Yes, he wasn't. So that, unfortunately, I have to give him a knock on that. And as far as Fields, like I said it earlier, I think he's going to be there. I think when the season's over, he's going to be the winner. I think Ohio State's going to be the national champions, if as long as nothing weird happens. But where we're at right now, it's too early to call. But if I was voting right now, I got to go with Alabama.
I can't argue with you, for the same reasons, and I know there's going to be some folks that, as I was putting the show notes together, I was sitting here thinking, man, there's probably a lot of people that are expecting me to put Ian Book on this list. And Ian Book has played a great season so far. But the running game in that offense and the defense, I think, have been more important to that team than Ian Book's play. Granted, he put a solid stamp on his resume last night with, like I was telling you, I thought that game was over once he fumbled the ball into the end zone. And it was shaping up to be just another Brian Kelly loss, where things start falling apart and everyone just kind of the magic's gone.
Mm-hmm.
But Book last night fumbles the ball in the end zone, and like I said, I almost turned the game off at that point, and he reached deep and said, "Not today, not tonight. We're not losing." And he, I hate it when analysts say that. He willed their team to win. He put the team on his back, but he really kind of did.
He did, absolutely.
And I think that's been one of the biggest knocks on Ian Book is, I'm not going to say heart, but once things start to go bad, he doesn't know how to stop them from going bad. And he took a gigantic step in his maturing process. I think that whole entire team took a gigantic step in the right direction as far as their maturing process. And I think from now on, it's only going to make Coach Kelly better.
Mm-hmm.
Because you finally got that monkey off your back. You finally, it would be like Harbaugh beating Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
How much pressure would that take off him to actually fucking coach and not worry about what's going to happen at the end of the year, what's going to happen during that game, and just coach? I guarantee, even if he wins one, the Michigan faithful would give him so much relief, so much air to breathe, that it'd just be an entirely different atmosphere in that whole entire program. And I think for Coach Kelly, that was his monkey right now. It's always been noted he can't win the big one. There you go.
Yep.
There you go. So I'm excited, obviously, to see what's going forward with this, and to see where Coach Kelly and Ian Book take this team, because the last 3 minutes of that game in regulation and into the two overtimes was a different Ian Book than the entire season that I've seen.
Yeah, I totally agree.
It was a very very nail biting game last night. But you know what? When you get two powerhouses like that,
yeah, absolutely.
And it was refreshing to see that it wasn't just a Clemson runaway, because we've also seen that too.
Oh yeah.
Take the national title game against Alabama. That was never a fucking game. It was at 41-14 or some shit, and the 14 points was just kind of garbage time. So, but yeah, that's going to be exciting to see, and that's why Ian Book is not on this list, ladies and gentlemen. He's a very, very good player, but he's not elite like these guys are. As much guts and grit as he showed last night, that's only one game.
Yep.
These guys have been doing it for multiple years. So that's why he's not on this list. I'm not hating. I still love my Irish, but I'm not Skip Bayless. This is not a list of very good. We're talking about the fucking Heisman, which is the best player in the country. So that's where, and I wanted to squash it before anyone even said it. So there it is. And what time? What do we got for time? We're at 54. So is there any loose ends that we need to tie up here, 2Ks? Unfortunately, we did not get any comments tonight, which kind of saddens me, because I want to hang out with you guys. I want to chat with you guys. I want to argue with you guys. Not argue, but have a discussion. Because if you followed us for any amount of time, you know we're not the Skip Bayless yelling type people, but we do like to, especially get guys like Cody in here who their fandom is stupid, and we like to point it out. Jets fans and Knicks fans. He's a Knicks fan too, isn't he?
Yeah.
What a fucking weirdo.
The one thing I will say about him though is he
hasn't
hasn't wavered,
blue.
man. He hasn't wavered. He's stuck with it.
He's true blue, that's for sure. He definitely is not a.
And has not had any it's not like they've had any fluke good seasons here anytime recently. Like they've been in the.
I'm pretty sure the last good season the Jets had was Sanchez's second year, and they went to back-to-back.
Yeah.
The playoffs back-to-back years, and then not slowly, but kind of quickly went downhill in the butt fumble and.
Pretty much since they ran Rex out of town, and.
Yeah.
Maybe he wasn't as bad as what a lot of people thought he was, but hey, I can't really give Cody that much of a hard time because my fucking teams are right there with you. But they're
Speaking of teams, since we do have a few minutes left here, big news from Red Sox Nation. Kind of exactly what I thought was going to happen. I'm pretty sure you had it. Mm-hmm. Alex Korg being re-signed. So. Now we have both of the managers that were caught up in the cheating scandal back in baseball. And have you and I talked about AJ Hinch? Mm. So we've got some time, so we might as well. I like the hire. Absolutely. I really do. And for all of you that are going to say that he's a cheater and this and that, I mean, the players cheated. He kind of let it happen.
Yeah, I'm not going to defend him and say that. I'm not going to defend him and say that, he was right, or I'm not even going to say that he was wrong. I mean, he's in a situation where he's dealing with. These are grown men. These aren't college athletes. These aren't high school athletes. These are grown men that they're dealing with.
Yep.
And try to put yourself in the shoes that he was in, and are you going to tell a borderline Hall of Fame, probably is a Hall of Fame baseball player when it's all said and done, Carlos Beltran.
Yeah.
And now he probably won't be, but
probably will never coach it. Not either. So
if none of this happened, he probably would be a Hall of Famer
eventually. Not
first ballot, but probably would be. But you're going to tell him, at the tail end of his career, you're not going to do things that way. You're not.
Right.
That's a hard job to do.
Especially being a manager like Hinch, that's not really long in the tooth.
Yes,
he's not. He's not your
established. There's not a whole
guy.
lot of difference in age between Hinch and Beltran. And
not at all.
But I mean, obviously we're about 2 weeks into this now since the Hinch hire, and we've started to see a little bit more of the staff come together. And actually. The intriguing one for me is the pitching coach, and they decided to go with Chris Fetter coming from the University of Michigan. And obviously we've seen some of the pitchers that Michigan has developed here in the last few years.
Is McClendon still there?
No, he's gone.
Thank fucking Christ.
He's gone.
Thank Christ.
He's gone.
If I was a Tigers fan, like a major Tigers fan, I wouldn't care who they hire as long as McClendon is not in that building.
Yeah, but to me. The pitching coach might be the most important job. Might even be more important for that Tigers organization than the manager.
Especially with all the young
AJ
kids.
Hinch. Yes, all the young talent. This rebuild is based around pitchers. Mm-hmm. I mean, they decided that they were going to draft heavy on pitchers there for 4 or 5 years in a row there, and now these kids, and then also making trades at the trade deadline with a few of their players and bringing in other prospects. They're trying to go pitcher heavy, and that's what they want to build around. And they chose to kind of fill the vacancies with position players after they filled the pitching. So the pitchers they have a lot of young kids that are ready. They're this is probably going to be the year where a lot of these kids are going to have a chance. Last year we got to see Casey Mize and Skubal, get started with their careers, and
some of the young kids out of the bullpen too.
Yes, and I expect those two to be on that opening day roster and be in the starting rotation right off the bat.
Yes.
But there's going to be some other kids that we haven't seen yet that are going to have that opportunity in spring training to possibly make a team. So I'm excited. I'm not knocking Gardy at all. I love Gardy. He's I thought he was perfect for the job. He wasn't given a chance. He was basically that guy to fill the gap until they were able to develop these players, and then obviously we knew that they were going to go somewhere else. And I can remember saying it months ago when all this went down. AJ Hinch is going to be in the conversation. The Tigers are going to be in the conversation to bring back AJ Hinch into Detroit, and it went down. And I'm excited about it. I'm excited to see it.
You should. I think he's the perfect hire for that team. And I didn't know that. I didn't know about the pitching coach, but that makes perfect fucking sense. And both with Mize and Skubal, and then even the young kids out of the bullpen that started to emerge. it's going to be interesting to see what they do in free agency, because I mean, there's going to be still a lot of question marks that they need to be filled, and there's going to be a lot of like we've touched on many times, is the kind of gap at shortstop and how many shortstops that are available, and let's see if they land one of those. Like I said, if I can get Seager for for 3/4 of the price of Lindor, I think I'm going Seager at that point. But would I turn down Lindor if he wanted to come? Absolutely not. No, come, sign this contract. Here's a check. Yeah, and Trevor's Story too. I would do the same thing with him. And like I said, there's a handful of them out there. So let's see if the Tigers can land one of them and not overpay for him either.
Yeah, and they decided to hire Hinch, and obviously I love the move. If you're a Dodgers fan, you might know this name, but George Lombard was their first base coach. He was actually in one of the finalists to become the next manager of the Tigers. Also, they interviewed him for the actual managing job, and they brought him. They were able to bring him over as the bench coach. So he's going to be the bench coach, which means Lloyd McClendon, get the fuck out of here. You're not the bench coach anymore. You're not anything to do with hitting. You're not anything to do with Detroit baseball anymore.
I don't want him to be. I don't want him at the concession stand.
No, get the fuck out.
I don't even want him in the booth.
Tired of it. Get the fuck out of here. We don't want you back.
I would take Mario and Rod back any day. Do not put Lloyd McClendon in the booth. I want his juju gone from the whole fucking stadium.
Yep. And basically they completely cleaned house. The only guy that they brought back was Ramon Santiago.
Yeah,
and he's the only one they brought back in. He'll probably be an infield coach and also first base coach or a third base coach would be my guess. That's what he was last year.
Yeah, I have no problem bringing him back. But yeah, it's kind of like that. It's the new regime coming in. You're not only you're getting a new coach. A new coaching staff, but these Tigers are not the Tigers that we kind of known. You know what I mean? There's been a lot of turnover with the roster. There's obviously Miggy, but even his role in the team is different. So with this new look, you have to clean house. You have to clean house. And like I said, it's going to be interesting to see where they go in free agency. And
I'm curious to see. I'm really curious to see if this is the year and as far as with free agency, do they really get serious about it, or are they just going to keep on signing 1-year deals with filler guys that they can try to flip at the deadline for something? I guess I want to get an understanding of where do they think that they're at now. I mean, obviously, people can say what they want to say. I don't know what happened as far as with the whole Gardenhire situation. I don't know if he walked away from it. I don't know if the Tigers told him that they wanted him to walk away.
Last I heard, it was health concerns.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of different stories there, but I think that probably them seeing a guy like AJ Hinch that was on the market, they probably were making a move at that, thinking that hey, our time to start turning this thing around is now. Are we going to get another opportunity to go after a manager of AJ Hinch's caliber? If we don't do it now, what's going to happen?
When?
Exactly when. So that almost tells me, maybe they think that we got to see a lot of different young kids thrown in and out of there last year. Obviously, a lot of talent there. Some of them I still think are maybe a year or two away, and then obviously. Probably two of their best prospects in the entire organization we didn't see last year. We're talking about Torkelson and Green. Are we going to see them this year?
Which I was shocked we didn't get to see Riley Green at all.
Same.
I was kind of shocked.
But you got to remember that when they drafted him a couple years ago, he was straight out of high school. So he's only 20 years old now. Going into the season, he'll be 20 years old. So very young. Actually, Torkelson's 2 or 3 years older than him. Their first round pick from this last year. So it's just. Something tells me that them getting kind of aggressive and going after Hinch is they think that they're close and they think that they're going to have a team that can really compete. Are they going to get serious now about it and try to bring those 2 or 3 pieces in the offseason that are not just filler guys that they want to flip at the deadline, guys that they want to bring in that are going to help them win and going to help them be a playoff caliber team.
5 to 7 year contracts and stuff like that. So And it, and you're very, very right. So 2Ks, that is I guess kind of the shining part of your fandom is that I don't think your Tigers are that far away.
Yeah.
The only thing that's really going to keep them back is how the other teams in that division stack up. Cleveland's not going anywhere. Minnesota's not going anywhere. Oddly enough, the White Sox fired their coach. I don't understand that, but they got Tony La Russa. We'll see what he can do with that young squad, and they're just getting better.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. That's a team that's not going away.
No,
that team's not going away for a while.
And you can never count out Tito in Cleveland, and hopefully he's back next year with his. He had a lot of health concerns this year. And it's no secret you and I are both Tito Francona fans. So I hope he's back on the bench this year, even though it is with the Indians, but he is still one of my favorite guys. So I'm impressed. I'm right there with you. Something's brewing over there in at Comerica, and it's a good thing.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
A good thing.
And it's not only for obviously the young talent that's coming up, there's a lot to be excited about, but man, I can't get over how excited I am with having somebody fresh like AJ Hinch, somebody that's younger, somebody that's kind of more into the analytics of the game today. And let's not forget, obviously that World Series team, people can say what they want to say about it. Even me personally, I say, fuck that. I will never consider them the 2017 World Series champions after the fucking mockery that they made of it.
But the talent on that team there is legit.
Yeah, but you rewind 2 or 3 years before that when they were not the powerhouse team and they were still competing in the playoffs with obviously the same players, but they were a lot younger and not proven yet. But Hinch had them right there in it, playing for it.
And he had them in there without the Verlanders, without the Coles, without the Greinke's. So there was the Sports Illustrated cover that says they were going to be the 2017 World Series champions or whatever.
And look, I'm not saying that the Tigers are going to be competing for a World Series next year.
No.
Do I think there's a chance that they can compete for a playoff spot? Absolutely. And that's what me as a Tigers fan. I mean, I know there's other Tigers fans out there that are saying, we want to see those those days back. Some of that Jimmy Leland era with those teams. We're a long ways away from that yet. But let's get to the point where, maybe we can be like that 2006 Tigers team where nobody really was expecting anything out of them. And the next thing you know, they're in the World Series. And obviously they didn't win it. They lost to the Cardinals, but they were in it. And nobody really expected that team. It was a bunch of young kids, and they just kind of built that team with...
People would say they were 2 or 3 years early.
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
Get there.
Absolutely.
So
hopefully, just want to get towards the tail end of a season and be playing, legitimate baseball.
Sure.
Going into the trade deadline and wanting to improve your team, that would be, nice instead of trying to improve your farm over and over again.
And my Red Sox are in the same boat. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what both front offices do, and yeah, I just can't wait for baseball.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say, as far as with Tigers in Boston, you're two of the better managers in all of baseball are with those two teams now.
Yep, and it's never been a secret that I think Cora was going to end up back in Boston. I really don't think. I think it was just a PR move to get to part ways with him.
Yes, it was the move that had to be made at the time.
Yeah.
They had to make the move because that was they had to. Obviously, with everything going on, everybody that was involved, they just had to do away with because it was just going to bring nothing but negative attention.
They just had to get them out of the way.
Yes, it would have brought nothing but negative attention to Boston all season long, and they already had a lot of negative attention coming their way anyway.
I can't remember the last time the Red Sox had the 4th pick in the draft either. Which is kind of weird. All right, well, 2K crew, thank you for hanging in there with us. We love you. If you want to join the Facebook group, it's facebook.com/group/Turbo and 2Ks. Get in there. We post a lot of cool shit and have a lot of fun. There's nothing else, 2Ks. I think we're done, buddy. And as always, Jim Rome, we're coming for you.